Two legends who hadn't spoken in years. Neil Diamond walking onto that stage unannounced. Barbra Streisand breaking down in tears the moment she saw him. What happened between them that caused years of silence, and what made this reunion so powerful it left everyone in the audience crying? Stay with me because this story will touch your heart in ways you never expected. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. This wasn't just another celebrity reunion. This was the healing of a wound that had been open for decades. This was two of the greatest voices in music history finding their way back to each other after years of hurt, misunderstanding, and regret. Let me take you back to the beginning. Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand, two names that defined American music in the 1960s and 1970s, two Jewish kids from humble backgrounds who made it to the absolute top of the entertainment world. Two artists who shared so much in common, but whose paths diverged in ways that created distance and pain. They first met in the early 1960s in New York. Both were young, hungry, trying to make it in the brutal entertainment industry. Neil was writing songs in the Brill Building, that legendary songwriting factory where so many hits were born. Barbra was singing in nightclubs, doing whatever gigs she could get, building her reputation one performance at a time. They were both struggling, both dreaming, both determined to make something of themselves. There was an instant connection. Not romantic, though the media would try to create that narrative later. It was something deeper. Recognition. They saw in each other the same fierce ambition, the same refusal to compromise their artistic vision, the same hunger to prove that kids from Brooklyn could conquer the world. They became friends, real friends. The kind who understood each other's struggles because they were living the same ones. Neil Diamond was there when Barbra got her first big break. He celebrated with her, gave her advice, listened when she was scared or uncertain. Barbra was there when Neil's songs started getting recorded by major artists. She encouraged him, believed in him when he doubted himself. They lifted each other up during those crucial early years when everything could have gone either way. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. But to understand why that moment was so powerful, you need to know what tore them apart in the first place. Success came for both of them. Big success. Massive, world-changing success. Barbra became a superstar. Her voice, that incredible instrument that could break your heart or lift your spirit, made her one of the biggest names in entertainment. She conquered Broadway, then Hollywood, then the recording industry. She won Oscars, Grammys, Emmys. She became an icon. Neil Diamond's career exploded too. His songs became anthems. Sweet Caroline, Cracklin' Rosie, America, Forever in Blue Jeans. He filled stadiums. He sold millions of records. He became one of the best-selling artists of all time. His songwriting influenced generations of musicians. His performances set standards that others tried to match. But success changed things between them. Not immediately, not obviously. But slowly the distance grew. Different management teams, different social circles, different demands on their time. The entertainment industry has a way of pulling people apart, even when they don't want to be separated. You get so busy being successful that you forget to maintain the relationships that mattered before success came. There were missed phone calls, cancelled plans, good intentions that never materialized into actual connection. The kind of drift that happens between friends when life gets complicated. At first, it seemed temporary. They'd reconnect soon. They'd make time. But soon turned into months, and months turned into years. Then came the incident that really damaged their friendship. The details are murky because neither of them spoke publicly about it for a long time. But from what people close to both of them have said, it involved a misunderstanding about a professional opportunity. One of them felt betrayed by the other over something related to a project or collaboration. Words were said, feelings were hurt. Pride got in the way of resolution. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage, and she cried. The silence between them stretched on. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Two people who had once been so close, who had understood each other so deeply, now couldn't even be in the same room together. The entertainment industry is small in some ways, and they'd occasionally be at the same events. But they'd avoid each other. Polite distance, professional courtesy. Nothing real, nothing honest. Both of them hurt from this. Friends close to Neil said he deeply regretted whatever had happened between them, that he missed having Barbra in his life, that he thought about reaching out but didn't know how. Too much time had passed. Too much pride was in the way. What would he even say after all these years? Barbra felt the same pain. In private moments with trusted friends, she'd talk about Neil, about the early days when they were just two kids with dreams, about how much his friendship had meant to her, about how she wished things had turned out differently, but she also didn't know how to bridge the gap. How do you reconnect after years of silence? How do you apologize for something when you're not even sure anymore what you're apologizing for? The entertainment industry watched this estrangement with sadness. Here were two legendary artists who had so much in common, who had started their journeys together, now living separate lives marked by this unresolved pain. People who knew both of them wished there could be reconciliation. But as years turned into decades, it seemed less and less likely. Then came 2008. Barbra Streisand was being honored at a major industry event, one of those nights celebrating a lifetime of achievement, the kind of event where your whole career is reviewed, where clips are shown, where other artists perform your songs, where everyone who matters in entertainment comes to pay tribute. Neil Diamond heard about the event. He wasn't initially planning to attend. Too complicated, too much history, too painful. But something kept pulling at him. This voice inside saying that life is short, that grudges are poison, that he had wasted too many years already staying away from someone who had once meant so much to him. He made a decision. He was going to that event. Not just as an attendee sitting in the audience, he was going to perform. He was going to surprise Barbra on stage. He was going to do something that would either heal their friendship or make the situation even worse. But he had to try. He couldn't let another year pass with this weight on his heart. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. The planning had to be done in absolute secrecy. Barbra couldn't know. If she knew, she might ask him not to come, or she might prepare herself emotionally in a way that would diminish the authenticity of the moment. This had to be real, raw, honest. The night of the event arrived. Barbra was there, beautiful and elegant as always, accepting tributes, watching performances of her songs by other artists, smiling and waving to the audience, giving gracious speeches. But those who knew her well could see something in her eyes. A sadness, a sense of something missing, of people who should have been there but weren't. The show was moving along, performance after performance, speech after speech. Barbra had no idea what was coming. The producers had kept Neil's appearance completely secret. Even most of the crew didn't know. It was one of the best-kept secrets in an industry where secrets are almost impossible to keep. Then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the audience, and Neil Diamond walked onto that stage. The crowd gasped. They understood immediately what this meant. They knew the history. They knew about the years of silence. They knew they were about to witness something extraordinary. Barbra was sitting in the front row. The moment she saw Neil, her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. You could see the shock, the disbelief, the flood of emotions hitting her all at once. Years of hurt, years of missing him, years of wondering if they'd ever speak again. All of it compressed into a single moment of seeing him there, on that stage, at her tribute. Neil looked right at her, and he began to sing. The song choice was perfect. It was meaningful. It spoke to their history, to their friendship, to the pain of separation and the hope of reconciliation. His voice, that distinctive, warm instrument that had moved millions of people over the decades, now focused entirely on this one person in the front row. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. The tears started almost immediately. Barbra tried to hold them back but couldn't. They streamed down her face as she listened to Neil sing. Every word felt personal. Every note carried decades of unspoken feelings. The entire audience was watching this private moment play out in public. Many of them were crying too. What do you think it takes to heal a broken friendship after so many years? Is it ever too late to reach out to someone you've lost touch with? Share your thoughts in the comments. Neil sang the entire song looking at Barbra, never breaking eye contact, pouring everything he felt into the performance. This wasn't just a tribute performance, this was an apology. This was an olive branch. This was one friend telling another that enough time had been wasted, that life was too short, that whatever had come between them wasn't worth losing each other over. When the song ended, the audience erupted in applause. Standing ovation. People were on their feet, crying, clapping, witnessing something they knew was historic. But Neil barely noticed them. He was still looking at Barbra, waiting to see how she would respond. Barbra stood up. Her makeup was ruined from crying, but she didn't care. She walked toward the stage. Neil came down to meet her, and in front of thousands of people and television cameras broadcasting to millions more, they embraced. Really embraced. The kind of hug that says, "I'm sorry and I forgive you and I've missed you and I love you all at once." They held each other for a long time, both of them crying now. The audience watching through their own tears. It was one of the most genuine, most moving moments in entertainment history. Two legends letting down all their walls, all their pride, all their defenses, and just being two old friends who had found their way back to each other. When they finally pulled apart, Barbra took the microphone. Her voice was shaking with emotion. She tried to speak, but had to stop several times to compose herself. She talked about the early days, about how much Neil's friendship had meant to her, about how much she had missed him, about how grateful she was that he had the courage to come there that night and break the silence that had lasted too long. Neil took the microphone next. He was more composed, but you could hear the emotion in his voice too. He talked about regret, about wasted years, about how stupid pride can be, about how lucky they both were to have this chance to reconnect, about how he hoped they could rebuild what they once had. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried, and that moment changed both of their lives. After that night, they began rebuilding their friendship. Slowly at first, phone calls, dinners, catching up on all the years they had missed, sharing their lives again, being there for each other again. The entertainment industry celebrated their reconciliation. Here were two icons showing that it's never too late to heal a broken relationship. That pride and stubbornness aren't worth losing people you love. That sometimes all it takes is one person being brave enough to take the first step. Their reunion became legendary. The footage of that moment has been watched millions of times. People share it when they're thinking about someone they've lost touch with, when they're wondering if they should reach out to an old friend, when they need to be reminded that reconciliation is possible even after years of silence. For Neil and Barbra, that night was a turning point. They got back years that might have been lost forever. They got to be friends again in a deeper, more meaningful way than they had been before. Because now they knew what it felt like to lose each other. They knew how precious their friendship was. They weren't going to take it for granted again. The story of their estrangement and reconciliation teaches us something profound about human relationships. We all have people in our lives that we've drifted away from, old friends we've lost touch with, relationships damaged by misunderstandings or hurt feelings, or just the passage of time. It's easy to let pride or embarrassment or uncertainty keep us from reaching out. It's easy to think too much time has passed, that the other person has moved on, that attempting reconciliation would be awkward or unwelcome. But Neil Diamond showed us that sometimes you just have to take the risk. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there even when you're scared of rejection. You have to decide that the possibility of healing is worth the discomfort of trying. And Barbra Streisand showed us how to receive that olive branch with grace and openness. She could have been cold. She could have been angry about the years of silence. She could have rejected Neil's gesture. But instead, she let herself feel. She let herself cry. She let herself be vulnerable in front of thousands of people, and in doing so, she opened the door to healing. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. That moment rippled out far beyond just the two of them. It touched everyone who witnessed it. It reminded people of their own estranged relationships. It inspired people to pick up the phone and call someone they hadn't talked to in years. It showed that even in the superficial world of entertainment, real emotion and genuine human connection still matter most. The friendship between Neil and Barbra became stronger after their reconciliation than it had been before. They appreciated each other more. They made time for each other, despite their busy schedules. They supported each other's projects and celebrated each other's successes. They had learned the hard way that friendship is precious and fragile and worth fighting for. In interviews after that night, both of them spoke about the experience. Neil talked about how scared he was walking onto that stage, how he didn't know if Barbra would be angry or receptive, how he almost backed out a dozen times, but how grateful he was that he went through with it, how that decision changed his life. Barbra talked about the shock of seeing him there, how all the hurt and anger and sadness from the years apart hit her at once, but how underneath all of that was love, real love for an old friend, and how that love was stronger than any misunderstanding or wounded pride. How seeing him reminded her of who they had been before fame and success complicated everything. How it felt like coming home. The entertainment industry is full of ego and competition and broken relationships. People fall out, partnerships dissolve, friendships end over misunderstandings or professional disagreements or just the pressure of fame. What makes the Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand story special is that they found their way back. They proved that reconciliation is possible, that it's never too late, that old wounds can heal if both people are willing. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe because I bring you more incredible stories about the human side of legendary performers. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reach out to someone you've lost. That friendship is worth fighting for. That pride isn't worth losing people you love. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. Those tears weren't just about sadness. They were about relief, about gratitude, about the weight of years of separation finally lifting, about two friends finding each other again after too long apart. The moment remains one of the most powerful in entertainment history, not because of spectacle or production value, but because of authenticity, real emotion, genuine human connection happening in front of our eyes. Two people being vulnerable and brave and honest. Two legends showing us that underneath the fame and success and public personas, they're human beings who need friendship and connection just like everyone else. Years have passed since that night. Neil Diamond has since retired from touring due to Parkinson's disease, but he and Barbra remain close. They talk regularly. They're there for each other. They treasure the friendship they almost lost forever. When Neil announced his diagnosis, Barbra was one of the first people he called. When Barbra has important moments in her life, Neil is there to celebrate with her. They often reflect on how close they came to never reconciling, how easily they could have let pride and stubbornness keep them apart for the rest of their lives. How many years they wasted being separated over something that, in hindsight, seems so small and insignificant. How grateful they are that Neil had the courage to walk onto that stage and Barbra had the openness to receive him. The lesson extends far beyond two celebrities. We all have these moments available to us, opportunities to reach out, to heal, to reconnect, to say I'm sorry or I miss you or I was wrong, to put aside pride and take the risk of vulnerability. Most of us don't do it. We let fear or embarrassment or uncertainty hold us back. We let relationships die that could have been saved. We lose people who mattered because we couldn't find the courage to make the first move. Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand show us a different way. They show us that it's worth the risk, that the discomfort of reaching out is nothing compared to the pain of permanent separation, that old friends are precious and rare and worth fighting for, that years of silence can be overcome if both people want it badly enough. Thank you for watching this story about two musical legends who found their way back to each other after years apart. They hadn't spoken in years. Then Neil Diamond surprised Barbra on stage and she cried. And in those tears was healing and hope and the promise that broken things can be repaired if we're brave enough to try. Their friendship survived fame, misunderstanding, wounded pride, and years of silence. It survived because ultimately the love they had for each other as friends was stronger than anything that tried to keep them apart. And that's a lesson we can all carry with us.